全是传在奇迹的地方。君子不争，为何不争？
Colleagues, election.
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities. It's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year. Your vote, your voice. My vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Don't miss on U24.
Entrepreneurs Hub, giving you a deep and unique insight into agribusiness, services, ICT and innovation, industrialization and so much more. Entrepreneurs Hub, growing your small, medium and large business entity. With yours truly, Sandra Kahunde.
Youth of Purpose. Youth of Purpose.
Youth voters and your wallet.
Development and Education channel. We are focused on giving a platform to over 70% of our population to be able to have their voices heard. But also, we need to be able to transform our lives as young people. And U24 is here as a national broadcaster to give you that platform to be able to speak to the powers that be, harness the opportunities that are available, but also make sure that we are able to impact our lives on a daily basis. I welcome you tonight to this show, and we're discussing the 2025-26 budget and looking at the opportunities available for the youth. What do you have to expect, and how do you get yourself ready to be able to benefit from the opportunities, but also what is on the national cake such that you can be able to have your share. And with me today in studio, to start from my far left, the usual suspect, Nimrod. Welcome to Youth of Purpose once again.
Thank you, Ivan. It's a pleasure coming here every Wednesday to share my views, but also to say hello to the viewers from Namisindo. We are so happy for your time to always come and watch us. Thank you so much. I'm glad to be here. Looking forward to share my opinion on this budget and how young people can position themselves to get something from it. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And right next to Nimrod is Emmanuel Omene from the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development. Emmanuel, welcome to Youth of Purpose. Kindly say hello to the viewer.
Hello, viewers outside there, and Ivan, thank you so much for having me in this show. It is such a privilege to showcase what government is doing, especially programs that target the young people of this country in order to ensure socio-economic transformation of our society. I look forward for a fruitful discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. And to be specific, Emmanuel is an economist, a senior economist and planner at the ministry. And next to Emmanuel is Ndugu Hafashimana. Ndugu, welcome to Youth of Purpose. As usual, kindly say hello to the viewer.
Thank you, Comrade Ivan. I am Afashimana Asimwe. I come from Kisoro, and I send my greetings to all the Bafumbira and the Bakimbiri. I am also the chairperson of
You're Mchimbiri?
I am Mufumbira.
You said something to do with the Mchimbiri.
The Bachimbiri are part of Kisoro district.
Huh.
Yes.
Are they only in Kisoro district?
They are partly in Kabare, but largely in Kisoro. So we have Bafumbira and Bachimbiri in Kisoro.
Bachimbiri are
all over the chairperson for the sub-county at Nyakabande for the NRM Youth League.
Okay.
And I'm glad that I will be joining fellow Ugandans to make sense of today's discussion. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And to start with, first of all, I'll start with you, Emma. What we're so much excited about tonight is what is in for us in this 2025-26 budget as the youth, if you can, in terms of numbers and percentages.
Okay, thank you so much, moderator. That's a nice question to start with. As the thematic area of youth, government is committed to ensuring that the youth are empowered, and the welfare of the youth is central to the government agenda. We at the Ministry of Gender, Labour and Social Development, being a people's ministry, youth are at the center of our programming. I think I wanted to mention that. Now, in terms of numbers and percentages, we intervene in youth issues through a number of programs. Maybe to start with, government developed the 4th National Development Plan, which plan has centralized the youth as being the anchors towards socio-economic transformation of this country. So as a ministry responsible for youth, we have developed a number of programs that have been going on for some time, and we are also scaling some of them for purposes of targeting the youth who are pivotal towards our socio-economic transformation. The first program that we have in the budget, because your question was like, how is the budget of next year and how does it mirror to the youth?
Exactly.
The first thing is that we have the joint program, we have a program of youth livelihood where government is going to continue supporting the youth enterprises through that program.
Okay.
And the ministry works together with all district local governments in delivering that program, and we are targeting youth between the ages of 18 to 30 years. Now, the budget of next year, because government took a decision to merge youth livelihood together with Uganda Women Entrepreneurship Program, in total, we will find it is about 27 billion shillings. And that money was indicated in the budget that the finance minister read to the nation. The second thing that we have also targeting the youth, together with Centenary Bank, government developed, or government is implementing what we call the Youth Venture Capital Fund. The Youth Venture Capital Fund tries to support those youth to become the youth to become entrepreneurs, so that they can borrow this money and do some businesses to better their own lives. Now, that money doesn't come directly to the ministry, but in partnership with Centenary Bank, there is about 10 to 12 billion shillings available there for youth to borrow at a low interest rate. Not to talk about other programs like the parish development model. All of us are aware that looking at the threshold set by government on the parish development model, 30% of funds allotted under the parish development model is earmarked for the youth. So you can see clearly that if you look at funds that go into the parish circle, 30% of that money is supposed to support the youth. So you can see clearly that government is interested in the youth. The other, of course, we have different other programs. At the ministry, we have a program that targets women, specifically those that are enterprising. That is under the GROW project. is growing livelihood opportunities for women enterprises. Now, of course, we can say we have women who are youth. And if we are looking at that program, it therefore means that the youth can also benefit. They can go to the different banks that government is partnering with to get this money so that they can scale up their businesses. So there are a number of opportunities that are available within the ministry, and to make sure that the youth the livelihood of the youth is actually improved. So just as a snapshot, that is what is available for next financial year. Of course, all of this, we work together with different partners, both within the government and outside the government. We have the National Youth Council, whose work is typically to mobilize youth across the country to partake of some of these development programs. So we are steadfast. We are looking forward to have this actualized come next financial year. Thank you.
Thank you so much. And before I move to another panelist, if you can, please, what you've mentioned specifically is actually continuation of the programs that we have been having even in the previous budget. You talk about the Youth Livelihood Program, which has been here for years. Talk about PDM, the 30% that, as you indicated, is specifically for the youth. I will pick, for example, to do with the Youth Livelihood Program. There was a moment, actually, you stopped putting in money. It is claimed that you stopped putting in money because the youth were not paying back. And my question is, as you put in more money in this budget, what have you been able to do to mitigate the issue of young people failing to pay back? And have you found out the reason why actually they weren't able to pay back? But if also you can be able to highlight the performance of all those projects by the government, what have we had in terms of impact to the youth?
Okay, thank you so much. You have brought a very interesting scenario that government gives money to the youth and these youth are not paying back government money.
Is it true, first of all?
I can say yes and no. Yes, in the sense that we have attitude problems with some section of our youth who believe that once government injects money, it is like merry-go-round for all of them. Yet government is interested in injecting something into the youth to make them more productive. But the ultimate objective is that once you are given this money, you are able, it is like a seed capital to enable you to sustain yourself going forward. But some of them have problems to do with the attitude that, okay, this is money for government. I think once this cycle ends, we can get another cycle, which is really a very poor attitude on part of our youth. And as a ministry, we have moved across the country to change that. And that's why you realize that under the National Development Plan and under the Parish Development Model, the ministry is in charge of issues to do with the community mobilization and mindset change. Part of the things that we have been doing is exactly that. Now, also, we had a discussion, Cabinet took a decision and said that as a ministry, we transfer part of the monies, we transfer monies to the district under the Youth Livelihood Program to support recovery of funds. And we work together with the office of the district community development officer and the respective cows. We have involved everyone, including RDCs, to ensure that whoever borrowed government money, that they make it good and refund that money back to the treasury. And the moderator, I have to say this, Ivan, we have moved on well. Youth are paying. I know there are still challenges, but from Bank of Uganda, from the reports that we have got, a number of youth are paying back that money to the consolidated fund, and the percentages are increasing. So, yeah.
Thank you. Thank you so much. I think that makes it a bit clear and gives us a ground. to pick it up from. And if I can start with you, Nimrod, as a youth leader and representing the young people from Bugisu region, with all the trust that they have in you, if you look into this budget, does it speak to our interests as youth, and do you think it's going to help us as the young people to be empowered?
Thank you, Ivan, and thank you, my senior brother here, for giving a very wonderful insight. Reading the budget of 2025-2026, when I saw the theme that was read by the Minister of Full Monetization of Uganda's economy through agriculture, industrialization, expansion of services and digitalization of the economy, I was happy to see that. Then I tried to dig a deep into the theme. I can assure you that this government has done something for the young people. When you look at from 2010 coming to 2011 up to date, the money that government has injected in youth programs through different sectors. Let me give you an example before we talk about direct investment in the youth. For example, if you invest money in education, you're speaking to the young people. 81% of parishes in this country today have schools where young people go to attend, as per 2024 statistics. That in this whole country, among 34,000 parishes, at least 81% of them have schools where we can go and get education, basic education. We look at the health sector, from health center to, going up. All these places, the young people get services. Infrastructure, in every sector we can talk about it. But getting direct to the young people, where money is now injected, when I look at this year, around 23.6 billion shillings have been earmarked for Youth Livelihood Fund. To me, that's great. The only challenge I think we have out there is information. The information gap is a mess. That where I come from, for example, in my district, money is over every time being taken back in the consolidation fund. Young people are not applying for it, or sometimes the bureaucracy is frustrating them. Something that I think government can work on. But yes, there's that money which I think young people can pick from. Secondly, 100 billion shillings have been allocated in Emyoga, and Emyoga targets most of the young people. So I think if young people can join circles and organize themselves, definitely they can pick something from that and get themselves to the job market and entrepreneurship. Thirdly, there is a resource that put in for small and medium enterprises. I think around 21.6 billion shillings. I think this money can help the young people who are trying to do something. But also the money that has been invested in innovations and trainings through presidential industrial hubs, through training vocational institutes. I think that money is something young people can be proud of, because it automatically targets the young people. Yes, not cash to you, but it is doing something. I think one thing that I wanted to see in that budget that I didn't see very well is that what happens when after training these young people in this vocation training schools, in these presidential hubs. I think there was need for us to have something as a startup capital. Yes, I've done carpentry, but I have no tools to start.
But if you've been skilled, then you have the mwoga that is needed for you to go and access money through a mwoga, maybe. But thank you so much.
Yes, as I conclude, I want to congratulate government that as we start the NDP4, they have made it clear that young people are the center of ensuring that Uganda moves from $61 billion economy to $500 billion economy by 2040. I think by the fact that I have recognized that we are the center of this discussion, we are moving well.
Okay.
Thank you.
Thank you so much. Ndugu Afashimana, seeing the Ministry of Finance read the budget and all that information, the English is spoken, does it make sense to you as a youth? And what did you pick from that? And from the numbers, what do you see in for us as the youth?
Thank you. It is good to first recognize that the question is very timely. Number one, we need to first acknowledge the fact that there has been a more than 6% increase on the government's GDP, giving us around 53, and compared to, of course, other East African countries. So whereas we are addressing an issue to do with budgeting, especially including the young people, we must not take for granted how other countries make it, especially at the East African bloc. And what is in for us is that I think the NRM government has done something very great. And like you might have seen, I saw a report, I think it is something that must have been captured within the budget for the young people, that there has been an exemption of the businesses that are established by the young people within a time frame of 3 years. That within the first 3 years of their birth date, they are exempted from paying taxes, to simply encourage more upcoming, to have much to do with innovation, to have much more with creativity, and encouraging more young people to take part into the monetization, economics, and all of that. So I think in that capacity, we applaud the government for, especially the NRM government, for having really thought about how to support the young people, especially those who begin their business. But also, I want to acknowledge the fact that there has been an idea to support the young people through the PDM. It didn't just stop at PDM, but also we have had before, like Mr. Emmanuel put it before, that we have had the Capital Youth Venture Funds. Maybe the question is, what had gone wrong with the initiative? What has gone wrong with the Youth Livelihood Program? For the fact, if it's not today or yesterday, I saw a letter addressed by the chair, the National Youth Council, writing to the Secretariat of the Special Interest Groups. And I think it was very clear on over 20 districts that we are not able to get disbursement of the YLP. It's on record, including Kisoro, where I come from, including Butambara, Chenjojo, Kwen, over 20 districts. They have not received the disbursement of those YLP funds for the financial year 2024-2025. Now a new budget is on for 25-26. So I think there is a problem, especially when it comes to administration, and I think it is either deliberate or something of the sort. So we challenge the government to ensure that some of these districts and others, they should be able to recover their disbursement of the YLP funds for that financial year before we can begin on the next financial year. So I think that should be put on record. Number 3, we cannot take the idea away of, I think my good friend Nimrod talked about TVET, vocational training centers, presidential skilling hubs all over the country. And I think whereas I kept on watching the president in his PDM presidential shows all over the country, there was an idea of young people appreciating the best that they have gotten from the government. So I think in that capacity, I applaud the government, especially the NRM government. Though I think there are things that are still lacking. When you go to where I come from in Kisoro, there are young people that, in my view, never got fees to further their education. So they are either P7 dropouts or senior 3 or senior 4. They joined the vocational training centers. Some of them went to Kisoro Technical Training Institute, others went to the institute at the Diocese of Mabura, and people have been able to gain skills in the time that have been enabled them to make their own money, under which I think the government, even President Museveni, has asked us occasionally to ensure that we involve ourselves into businesses that generate us more money, especially those that are done by hands. A case in point is that when you go to a place where I come from in Mutorere, there has been ancient welding area, carpentry, and I think the government should interest itself in ensuring that they support that skilling hub. It is there privately owned, but I think if the government took interest in it, it could benefit many young people, not just within Kisoro, Kigezi, Uganda, Atiraj, because we have had people coming from Soroti, studying from Metropolitan International in Kisoro. We have had them come from Kisoro, go to Guru University to study from there. So I think it's something I think the government should also entice. But also, when we talk about education and trying to borrow revenues from each of the sectors, there has not been an investment to ensure that we support the young people to study these vocational skills. For example, if the government chooses to support a person who is done with senior 6 to pay for them at Makerere, at Chambogo, at Bustem, at Guru, on government merit, why shouldn't there be an initiative of supporting young people interested in vocational training skills over the same? That there is money allocated to finance and support on a scholarship basis these young people that are interested
in studying vocational skills.
Can I give him information?
Sure.
Comrade, when you look at the budget, 63 billion shillings has been earmarked for loans. And in this student loan scheme, they have made it clear for diploma, degrees for both universities and vocations. What does that mean? That if they have information, they can actually take advantage of this loan scheme, 63 billions in this financial year.
I think he's very specific when it comes to, and I request Emma to be able to note that, that TVET or vocational education really needs much more attention, not to be wrapped up to say it's student loans. But the question is, how do we encourage more students to take up vocational courses? The issue is vocational courses are looked at as a last resort. You have failed, you have not been able to perform well at Senior 4, so you divert because you've failed either to go to HSC, and that's when you can be able to do a vocational course. So how do we first of all invest in breaking the myth that vocational education is for those that are not good performers, but at the same time, if we can, in terms of either loans or scholarships, make it very affordable for students to be able to have a vocational education. If you can answer that, and then we pick it from there.
Thank you so much. Of course, the issues of TVET and vocational education has been championed by Ministry of Education and Sports. Fortunately, the Ministry of Gender, where I serve currently, we have what we call a program working group, whereby Ministry of Gender supports the issues to do with vocational education through skilling initiatives and things such as those. I give an example. From where I sit and from the Ministry of Gender side, he mentioned something very critical, that you have out of school youth people who could be given skills, competences and other things so that they can have a livelihood. Within the Ministry of Gender, we have a program, and that program supports Juakali enterprises for them to transition now into a formal economy. Now, government this financial year, next financial year, since we're talking about the budget of next financial year, has allocated 3 billion shillings to support. I know somebody can argue that that money is little, but we have a criteria of selecting this youth across the country. And what do we do with these youth? We provide them with the toolkits, we train them first, provide them with the toolkits, and we give them skills in carpentry and issues of metal fabrication, something that will enable them sustain their lives. Because now, yes, you are not able to go to school, but how do you continue living? How can you continue earning? So the ministry has that program. Then on issues to do with the vocational education, of course, if you look at the 4th National Development Plan, some of us who have a chance to read that plan, government has been deliberate on issues to do with the vocational education. Rightly, like you have said, most people are obsessed with the issues to do with the formal education. But now, government is turning the tide. Yes, that much as we're concentrating on formal education, talk about primary, secondary, university, or other institutions in that ladder, we are also interested in ensuring that our population is skilled. And it is something that is at the center of government programming in the 4th National Development Plan. And for those ministries that contribute to that agenda, there are programs that have been designed to ensure that that agenda of government is actualized. And I've told you, for Ministry of Gender, I am happy to note that we have a program that supports those kind of youth. And what do those youth just need to do? They need just to go onto the website of the ministry. They find a number of ways in which they can access some of those opportunities. Or they can call on us on George Street. A number of these opportunities can be made known to them. But we are not just waiting for them to come to us. We have also gone out to the population. We have scaled up some of these initiatives through our liaison officers in the district. We have district community development officers. We have a structure of community empowerment and sensitization spanning from national to the lower levels. So we are taking advantage of that to rally our population to appreciate some of these development programs. Thank you.
Thank you so much. If I can come to you, I'll be back to you, Nduga Fashimana. Nimrod, despite of all these initiatives by the government, I've been to districts like Namaingo, Namisindwa, I've been to Bududa, I've been to Chisoro, I've been to Bosia. Despite of all these initiatives by government, why are we not getting a magic bullet that can help us to transform the lives of young people? If you look at the levels of unemployment, but also the quality of life that these young people are living, if you go back in the villages, looking at the rate at which young girls are getting married, so it's really alarming. So why is it that however much we have all these programs, we are not really getting there?
Wow, such an interesting question. Very, very nice. I grew up from Namisindwa. I did all my primary school from there and all my O-level from there. I've witnessed firsthand what you're talking about. And for me, that is very touching because there's a reality out there, which I know that it's not only in Namisindwa, but it cuts across the country. The quality of life of the young people. Why is these things not working for the young people? Uganda being the second youngest country in terms of population, but also with this fast growing population, we're likely to face these challenges. But the biggest issue why these all programs from then Wonabagagawale, you know, coming to Prosperity for All programs, to NAD, to wealth creation, you know, reaching where we are today. I think one of the major problems is mindset. Mindset is a very big problem that I think this government has underestimated. Why do I say mindset is a problem? When you go to our people there and you tell them there is money for you, the young people, organize yourself into a circle, just a simple circle, and go and access this money. They will tell you so many stories that you cannot believe. I hope from, I think, Ministry of Guidance and National Planning, they should go on the ground and understand this problem. The problem mindset is that young people care about the stories, but there's so much information that erodes the real information, that people fear even to go and get the money and support themselves. Secondly, the quality of education. You cannot underestimate that problem. Yes, we can get the basic, we have grown up, but it's more theoretical. The reality is that after that school, we go back to basic. When you go to these factories here and you ask them, what's the issue with these people you're employing? They'll tell you the biggest problem is that these same youths that don't have jobs are unemployable. You want to employ them, but you cannot employ them. One, some young people are lazy, naturally. Yeah. Secondly, some of us young people don't like working. Thirdly, yes, we have work, but we want to work on our own terms. But also the issue of the skills. Some we don't have the right skills to do certain jobs. So that's a very big issue that we can also look at. Lastly, as I conclude, I think government should not design programs according to maybe few researchers on how they feel. I think it's important that they come back to us, the young people. They talk to us and we tell them what we think can work. Because what works for the people of West Nile, it may not work for Bugisu. Sure. Why? There are so many circumstances. For example, in our area now, land is a problem. We don't have a lot of land. Even if you give me so much seedlings, I may not make use of them. They dry from our backyards. They dry every time there. Why? I have nothing to do with them. But the wealth creation program has given me. So the problem is that we must also, as government, design programs that suit exact challenges of particular. We can cluster them. That this area, for example, our area in Taleja, Bukedi, where they are more into rice growing. Why are we pushing them into poultry farming? Yeah, we can push them into support them accordingly to what they want. So I think it's good that as government, as we continue to do these things to help, that we get back and speak to the young people. There's something I've been pushing and advocating for, and I continuously want to speak to government. The issue of National Youth Service. I think that will be the magic bullet to transformation of this country. Why am I saying National Youth Service? It will answer so many of these questions. That if young people are trained about their country, about the need to work, about the need for information, they understand why they are supposed to do what they are supposed to do.
But what are you doing in school for all those years until when you do HSC and do university and leave when you still don't know what you can be able to do? I think that also puts a very big question when it comes to the education system.
I'll give you an example of Kenya. The Kenya's education system has primary class up to class 8 from 4, then university. But the government has deliberately started the National Youth Service. Why? The colonial systems we have, somehow we are struggling to get out of them. The country must take deliberate moves. This was done by Korea. This was done by Singapore. That you must train a critical mass of young people that understand specifically why the country is taking a certain direction. And that must be deliberate. Yes, the classwork is there, but you have seen the results. So I think government must take interest in the National Youth Service. Why? It is the only bullet we have to build a critical mass of young people that understand that Uganda, for us to get where we want to get, for me as Nimro to get where I want to get, I must do certain things right. I think that's the only way we're going to get
Thank you. Ndugu Fashimana, we've had all these programs like you described, from youth livelihood program to Emyoga, we have PDM, and it seems we just have to keep adding on to the programs that are there, or else just replace one with the other. Why is it that all these programs, however much, yes, we can see some impact that they are having, we are not seeing real transformation in the lives of youth?
It's becoming very tough, and I think one of the two colleagues might have mentioned about mindset. That the designers or the developers of the PDM, they looked at the mindset change. Out of the 7 pillars, the mindset change was made pillar number 5. That was the wrong approach. You know?
And I think that's the reason we are not seeing it happening.
Absolutely, absolutely.
Mindset change happening.
That's why no matter how much money the government will invest, minus having a paradigm shift on how the public perceives the instance why the PDM is there, then we shall not achieve the main target. In year out, this program was launched in 2022. It's coming to now 3 years ago when it was launched.
Yes.
And I think I had cases in certain areas whereby this money was used to pay school fees. Why? Because some of our communities are still under abject poverty, that they cannot sustain themselves. The meat was on 10k Uganda shillings daily. And I think the idea of having 30%, then 30, then 30, cutting across the special interest groups, I think in my own view, it is on record that in Uganda, 75% are under the age of 18 to 30. And I think according to the National Youth Council Act, amendment 1993, is very clear on who a youth is. So if it's on record that we have that contribution to the national population, why would you just give a 30%? That means at the end of the day, some young people will not either be able to access the money, or in case they access it, they won't use it appropriately. So I think it's a challenge that I also want to spur the government, that maybe one or the other, they should think into increasing the money, just not 30%, but more, to have the young people participate in. The National Youth Council has been coexistent with the National Students Association for Uganda. And I think some of these structures, I think Emma talked about it, some of these institutions are deliberately left out. And I think the question is, who is consulted when they are drafting the budget? Who is consulted? Are young people participating? Is the National Youth Council on board? Is UNS on board? In my view, they are not on board. So at the end of the day, whatever they are planning for the young people is not for us, because they are planning without us. But as long as they begin planning with us, the young people,
then we shall have some of these questions addressed. And I think the issue I wanted to really talk about is how other youth councils operate. I am happy to announce that whereas in other countries they have not functionalized the participation of the young people, especially in parliament, even in other regions, Central Africa, Southern Africa, they are trying to benchmark on Uganda's parliament, on the youth participation in parliament. And I think I would want to thank the government of Uganda for having thought ahead of other governments to include the young people. That whereas we have 5 MPs representing us in parliament, there has been an outcry that there are very few. And others have been trying to think we could go for sub-regional members of parliament, which is, I think, I cannot go for because we shall be expanding further the government. I mean the parliament of Uganda. So even if it was kept at 5 and as long as these people we elect do their part, then we could have our voices much more projected in tables of decision making. And I think the core I also making in the same voice is that government should interest itself in ensuring that the youth councils are functional. Right away from the village level. It's not just about political mobilization using them, then after electoral process, everything is done. They must be functional for 5 years. When they are done, next 5 years, that a chairperson of the village is able to fill the time with the chairperson, and the people that voted for him, they feel their service. The same cut across to the parish or ward, sub-county or town councils, and district level. So that's why I think you might have seen this letter, whereby the chair of the youth council is, trying to remind the government, the secretariat, that come on, over 30 districts, over 20 districts were not able to get the disbursement of the YLP funds. Okay. Then I think, then he talked about Capital Youth Venture Fund. I don't know why I'm much more interested in the Youth Capital Venture Fund. Why? Because I believe there is money stagnant or doing nothing in either Central Bank or Stanbic Bank. I come from Kisoro, it's on record. And I think I have a brother who is a beneficiary. And I think that money has helped him to grow himself much more. You get money, and the government made it easier for the young people that you pay very small interest, very small. That if you are getting 1 million, the best you can give as interest at the end of the year is like 1K. That's very good for the government, for the young people. Sure. So I think the young people should interest in having this money accessed in the bank. But also, what does it require for them to get the money? I hear there should be mortgages. I hear there should be issues to do with you must have a piece of land. Of course, at younger age you cannot. I want to give information to you people that in 2023 there was a move, I think, by Parliament, and I think the bill might have been being moved by the Honorable Nyamtoro to have the National Graduate Scheme. That when you are from school, you don't have a job, and therefore government institutions, the ministries, the departments, and agencies could absorb you so that you can start working as you are getting some little allowances, so that you can get seniority in what you studied. Okay. And I think the bill is very silent. And maybe the other call is that they should release this bill and let it be passed as a law, that when students are done with university or with certificate or with whatever level of education, they should be absorbed somewhere, so that we can bridge the unemployment gap, because it is also increasing in year out. When you go to Kenya, Kenya's GDP is at 114 billion USDs, whereas at Uganda we are at 53.
We have increased to 63.
Very good. That's why I said I think at the beginning that we have increased by 70%, which is really very tremendous. And I think whereas the government is trying to do effort to ensure that there are issues to do with taxes which we haven't talked about. There is tax deepening, tax widening. That whereas the young people have been engaged into some of these SMEs, they have been sabotaged by having them, those who are already doing it, by ensuring that they pay more taxes. But the government has addressed it again by saying, okay, if you have a business and within the first 3 years, we are exempting you by giving you an incentive of not paying taxes for 3 years, which is very good. But also, I would encourage the government to look into tax widening, that we should be able to multiply the number of taxpayers and then sabotage, but also look into tax dodgers. I forgot the economic word to use to describe
evaders.
The tax evaders. Thank you very much. So, as long as the government can interest itself in ensuring that we have many more Ugandans who are able to pay taxes, whether direct or indirect, on goods or on our incomes, I think we should be able to do much more better in the next financial year. But also, I think in this very financial year, because it's getting effection, I think by 1st July. Yeah. So, way forward is that whereas we are crying for people to get jobs, to get skills, the government should also be able to ensure that we have the minimum wage. And I think it is another bill that has been very silent for over 5 years. I don't know when it was put on the floor of Parliament, but I think as long as we have the minimum wage bill, then we shall have some of the young people avoid or hear excuse from them that I'm being underpaid or my salary does not come on time. Of course, we have people who are into the employment sector and others are just employing themselves, because the outcry for the government has been an issue to do with let every young person be able to create a business for themselves, because not all of us cannot be employed by the government. The government is doing its best. Okay. The government has also interested itself into ATMS, into agriculture, whereby there have been money through
tourism.
Yeah, tourism. There has things to do with manufacturing, minerals, and science and technology. And I think I come back to the primary point of the young people who are doing educational courses, and that some of them are into science courses and others are into arts courses. So I think there has been a mismatch on who should go for what, because we are encouraging somebody to not to go for arts but to not banning art subjects. Then you are saying we are going to increase the salaries for sciences and we should not increase the salaries for arts. But the two disciplines coexist. That you cannot live in a society without arts. You cannot live in a society without sciences. Sure. So whereas there has been an interest by the government, especially the government, of supporting science and technology, we should also not take for granted other art disciplines.
Okay, thank you so much, Havashimana. And to add on the questions, I know certainly you have picked a number of questions from Nimrod and Havashimana. If you can kindly, first of all, we've been seeing the PDM tours by the president all over the country, and today he was in Greater Mpigi. And it's so much hurting. We so much appreciate these government programs, and I look at the impact. Myself, I've moved to different regions of this country, district by district, profiling successful farmers that have benefited from government programs. But it's so hurting that for all these people who've been seeing the president visit, how many youth, how many young people have you seen being put at the forefront of having succeeded in doing something either in agriculture from PDM money? Looking at the 30% that they've gotten, how many youth have we gotten? We've been able to profile majority of the people that have benefited from PDM. I have documentaries here that we've been running on our mother channel, UBC. I can tell you I wanted content that we can be running, which is specifically of youth that have benefited from PDM. I can't get that content.
Perfect.
They are not there. So when we talk about the 30%, my question is, where does it go and what does it do? Next question is what both Nimrod and Havashimana touched on. When you are designing these programs for the youth, what do you put in consideration, but also who do you speak to? What do you consider to be able to design these programs? At what level do we see young people being involved? When you're doing, for example, sensitization and awareness about these programs, all these projects you've talked about, how much awareness have we done to make sure that these young people are aware those programs are available and what it takes, the criteria of them being able to access that money? And I think that's where we're having a mismatch on saying this is how much we're putting in for the youth, but then we don't see the impact of that. If you can kindly first touch on those questions.
Thank you. It's a mouthful, but allow me start from where you had stopped, then I get to what you were saying. Now, I think looking at PDM, it's on record a number of youth have benefited from PDM, notwithstanding the challenges. Now, as a ministry, we track the extent to which the different special interest groups and our docket have benefited from PDM. Of course, PDM is coordinated by Ministry of Local Government, but as our part as a ministry, we are interested the extent to which the special interest groups that are within our docket have benefited. And you, from the reports that are available, by half year, by half year, this financial year, over 2 million young people have benefited from PDM. When you look at the database that has been prepared and disseminated by the Ministry of Local Government, and out of that, you realize that 49% of those are females, but 51% are male. Of course, there is that gender disparity, which is still being worked on.
Yes.
But one thing I want to concretize here, over 2 million young people have benefited, have accessed the PDM money, and they are utilizing that money in line with the guidelines that are set out by government. Now, there is something that he mentioned just tying on the PDM. He was giving an example like, you know, when you look at percentages, this is the percentage of the youth. But I want us to understand what PDM comes to cure. PDM is looking at people outside the money economy. Now,
and the youth are not an exception.
The youth are not an exception. Certainly, yes. The youth are not an exception. Now, when you look at data from Uganda Bureau of Statistics, at the time when PDM was designed, the persons outside the money economy, inclusive of the youth, was 39%. But just recently, when we had the Minister of Finance reading the budget, that figure has since dropped to 33%. Now, we are looking at 33% of the population, inclusive of all categories. If you analyze that versus versus the money that the government is churning to the parish circle, you can realize that much as challenges exist, we are taking we're going a leap forward. We're taking better strides going forward. So, what am I trying to say? One by one makes a bundle. We were not where we were yesterday, and we are moving forward, especially with the PDM on fostering the lives of youth. Now, there is something he mentioned, and it interested me so much. He talked about the Youth Venture Capital Fund, where he was saying, of course, there are challenges to do with it. Yes, Centenary Bank currently houses that money. But of course, we have been in discussion with the different banks that we are partnering with, not only with the issues of Youth Venture Capital Fund, including the funds that come through GROW, the program, yes, that some of these banks, sometimes they may front their own product. Now, when somebody goes there to borrow, they will not front for you the government package, which comes with a lower interest rate. So we have had several discussions with the banks to sort out that issue. So that's why you realize that even the Youth Venture Capital Fund was recording that in Kisoro, he can testify that somebody has gotten this money and is doing something.
Yes, I did.
Yes, so this is what we have done in order to reverse the challenges that were associated with this Youth Venture Capital Fund. And I liked also his submission when he said, okay, if we're talking about youth, I have completed a course at Makerere. What is government doing? And indeed, we are so cognizant about that. That's why within the Ministry of Gender, Labor and Social Development, we have a program. It is the program of National Apprenticeship and Graduate Volunteer Scheme. And I am happy to state that in the budget of 25-26, government has given seed money to popularize that program.
What exactly does the program do?
The program, what happens is that we have young people across the country, they apply. As they apply, they get into we pick them. It gives them necessary skills that are required for the job market. Because we have realized that there is a skills mismatch between what is in the class maybe through academics and what is required by the job market. Now, National Apprenticeship and Graduate Volunteer Scheme tries to bridge that gap. And currently, the next financial year, the figures we have 2 billion shillings to kickstart that program, targeting the youth. So you can see that from all angles, if you talk about empowerment, if you talk about livelihood, if you talk about skilling, we are targeting the same person. Government is coming all round to ensure that this youth becomes gainfully employed. Apart from being gainfully employed, can become productive. So I know the national, you talked about the National Youth Council. I can state here that the National Youth Council is within our docket as a ministry. And as an institution within the ministry, when it comes to budget and programming, they are typically involved when it comes to designing priorities that affect the young people of this country. And in fact, they have structures. Maybe now your issue will be, to what extent are those structures what? Consulted.
Zero.
I cannot say zero. Why do I say not? Why don't I say that I am able to say that it is not zero? Why? When you go into budget consultative meetings organized by Ministry of Finance, Planning and Economic Development, I personally participate in those. They try and pick young people in respective districts, to the extent that the National Youth Council even sends a representative in those regional local government consultations. Of course, as the Minister for Finance reads the budget at the national level, that budget is cascaded in regional workshops to understand regional intricacies. Like now, if you are talking about Namisindwa, the Bugisu region, I was happy when you were saying you cannot copy and paste what Bugisu requires, then you push it to Teso, or you push it to Kigezi, or you push it to Bunyoro, or Ankole, or wherever. So what happens in those meetings, you try to tailor-make, to make the budget relevant to the population that is going to serve. And in those meetings, apart from representatives of National Youth Council, we have other special interest groups, including local governments. Because, you know, as a center, we design policies, programs, strategies, and guidelines, but those guidelines, strategies, and plans are supposed to be implemented at the district level. So we bring everyone on board, and I implore you to be so close to the National Youth Council.
Let me give him information. Let me give you information, Mr. Ima.
Even today, maybe just a minute. Even today, before I came for this show, we were discussing on youth matters with the chairperson of National Youth Council. We are looking at that next financial year. How are we positioning youth to take their rightful place?
Yes.
I know the budget for National Youth Council next financial year is 4 billion shillings. And as a ministry, we are trying to ensure that with this small money, how much of this money is going to support the structures across, so that those structures help in mobilizing youth. Remember, these structures are up to the village. Their work is supposed to mobilize the youth to uptake. Someone mentioned about the apathy that the youth have. People are withdrawn, that we cannot uptake government development programs. Part of the work of the structure is to ensure that youth are mobilized across strides, so that they are in position to participate in some of these programs. Notwithstanding the challenges, certain things are happening.
Thank you so much, Emmanuel. Thank you so much, Ndugwa Fashimana. Thank you, Nimrod. Unfortunately, that's all we have got in as far as time is concerned. But we shall continue to have these conversations, and certainly the ministry will keep availing itself to be able to answer some of these questions, but also to speak to the population. Thank you so much for being a part of today's show. And we're proudly brought to you by the Electoral Commission, here to remind you that special interest group elections are actually happening. Make sure that you take a part and do that peacefully. I thank you so much. Every Wednesday we are here, Youth of Purpose, to give you a platform to speak to the nation. From me and my team and the panel, good night.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Youth of Purpose.
Youth voters and your wallet.
Youth, elderly, and persons with disabilities. It's time to choose our leaders. Let's show up and participate in the special interest group elections. Starting June through August this year. Your vote, your voice. My vote, my voice. This message is brought to you by the Uganda Electoral Commission.
Don't miss on U24.
Entrepreneurs Hub, giving you